Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of information and really try to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge, helping you cut through all the noise and get straight to what actually matters.
Mhm.
Today, we're embarking on, well, a bit of a literary adventure. We're diving into a classic that's just as witty as it is profoundly critical, Voltaire's Candide, first published way back in 1759.
A long time ago.
A very long time ago. You're about to get a shortcut, essentially, to understanding one of literature's most influential satires. It's a story that just rips apart naive optimism with this relentless, often hilarious series of misfortunes. Okay, let's dig in.
Absolutely. And Candide is, it's far more than just a funny story, this kind of picaresque tale. It's a really sharp, scathing critique of philosophical optimism,
Right.
particularly the ideas of Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, who famously argued we live in the best of all possible worlds.
That famous phrase.
Exactly. And Voltaire penned this masterpiece in the aftermath of the devastating Lisbon earthquake of 1755. That was an event that profoundly challenged such comforting, abstract notions.
How could it not?
Right. So as we journey through Candide's chaotic quest, you'll see how Voltaire uses this story to explore these huge themes: human suffering, the absurdity of war, religious hypocrisy, the search for genuine happiness, always contrasting abstract philosophy with, well, brutal, undeniable reality.
So our mission today is to guide you through Candide's incredible, often unbelievably tragic, yet ultimately kind of illuminating journey. We'll trace his steps chapter by chapter, uncovering the surprising facts, the unforgettable moments, and the core insights that make this book so powerful, so enduring.
Yeah.
So what enduring lessons does this centuries-old satire hold for us, here and now? Let's find out. Okay, so we begin our deep dive with Candide in this world just steeped in philosophical optimism, a world that's about to be, well, violently shattered. In these opening chapters, we really see Voltaire introduce and then just relentlessly dismantle this naive belief that everything is for the best.
Yeah, this initial section, it masterfully sets the stage. It introduces the core philosophical conflict that's going to drive the entire narrative, doesn't it?
It really does.
Voltaire immediately plunges our naive hero into a world that just starkly contradicts the optimistic teachings he's absorbed. And it starts with this, well, almost comically perfect environment.
That's right. In chapter 1, how Candide was brought up in a magnificent castle and how he was driven, thence we find ourselves in the idyllic-sounding Westphalia, specifically the castle of the most noble Baron of Thunder Ten Tronckh.
Quite a name.
Quite a name. Imagine this naive, sweet-dispositioned youth named Candide, whose face is the, quote, true index of his mind. He lives among a rather colorful cast. The comely, plump, and desirable Miss Cunegonde,
Yes.
her substantial mother, the Baroness, and the Baron himself, whose castle is magnificent because, well, it has not only a gate, but even windows.
High praise indeed.
Exactly. It's an exaggeration, of course, a subtle nod to the limited worldview Candide inhabits.
And at the heart of this seemingly perfect, if maybe somewhat provincial world, is Candide's tutor, Dr. Pangloss.
Ah, Pangloss.
He is the self-proclaimed oracle of the family, right? And his particular discipline is, get this, metaphysico-theocosmology.
Try saying that 3 times fast.
Exactly. It's a ridiculously long, invented term that basically means he's trying to explain everything in the universe through his twisted, optimistic logic. His central tenet, which he can apparently prove to admiration, is that everything is for the best in this best of all possible worlds.
And the reasoning is just. It's wonderfully absurd.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Noses are formed for spectacles, therefore we wear spectacles. Stones were made to construct castles, therefore the Baron has a magnificent castle. It doesn't follow logically at all.
Not even slightly. But this establishes the extreme, almost nonsensical optimism Candide is raised with.
Right. And Candide, with his natural simplicity, he just implicitly believes all this, especially since he's utterly enamored with Cunegonde.
Okay, so one day, Cunegonde observes Pangloss giving a lecture in experimental philosophy to the chambermaid Paquette.
Uh-oh.
This sparks her own, shall we say, scientific curiosity, leading her and Candide to mimic the experiments behind a screen. It's a moment of innocent, youthful exploration, but with rather dramatic consequences for their sheltered existence.
Indeed. The Baron, however, is not a fan of this particular brand of experimental philosophy, not when it involves his daughter and a youth who, let's face it, might be his illegitimate nephew.
Right.
So, upon discovering their innocent kiss and straying hands, he saluted Candide with some notable kicks on the breech, which basically means he unceremoniously kicked him out
Good idea.
and drives him out of the castle. Candide's perfect world, built entirely on Pangloss's philosophy, it just instantly shatters.
Go on.
Gone. His banishment is the first of many, many brutal encounters with reality, all driven by a simple, naive act.
And Candide's rude awakening just continues as chapters 2 and 3 plunge him into the absurd brutality of war and the, frankly, shocking hypocrisy of supposed Christian charity.
Yeah.
Alone and heartbroken, he's wandering without knowing where he went, half dead with hunger and cold. He stumbles into a town where these two men in blue uniforms approach him. They appeal to Candide's innocence, seemingly echoing Pangloss's doctrine that men were born to assist one another, and invite him to dine.
Sounds nice.
It sounds nice, but this seemingly kind of off quickly turns sinister. They handcuff him and force him into the Bulgarian army.
So much for assisting one another. His military training is brutal. Daily flogging, starting with 30 blows, then 20, then 10. He's called a hero, but he's completely struck with amazement at how.
Understandably.
When he tries to take a walk, asserting his privilege of the human species to use his legs freely, he's captured. He's court-martialed and given this truly grim choice. Run the gauntlet 36 times, that's receiving 72,000 strokes from 2,000 men, or be shot.
Some choice.
Right. Despite his assertion of free will, he's forced to choose the gauntlet. After 2 rounds, with his muscles and nerves literally laid bare, he begs to be shot. But then, just then, the king of the Bulgarians recognizes him as a young metaphysician, entirely ignorant of the world, and pardons him out of great clemency.
Just pure luck, really.
Pure arbitrary whim. His survival is due to this act of royal whim, not any inherent goodness of the world. A sharp contrast to Pangloss's logic.
And the horrors just escalate. Candide soon finds himself caught in a full-blown war between the Bulgarians and the Abaris, and Voltaire's description of the battle, it's horrifying. Trumpets, fifes, cannons create a harmony, he calls it, as never was heard in hell itself,
Chilling.
resulting in massive casualties. After the battle, Candide emerges to observe villages burned to the ground by both sides, agreeably, Voltaire writes, to the laws of war.
Agreeable.
He sees old men covered with wounds, wives dying with their throats cut, children stained with blood, young virgins ravaged and disemboweled. The sheer casual horror of this systematic destruction is just overwhelming. This is a crucial detail, isn't it?
Yeah.
It highlights that war itself, not just one side, is the problem here.
Precisely. That phrase, agreeably to the laws of war, is just pure biting satire from Voltaire. It demonstrates how humanity rationalizes atrocity. Candide concludes in this dawning moment of disillusionment that he must reason somewhere else upon causes and effects. And that's a significant intellectual shift for him.
Definitely. He escapes to Holland expecting Grulgian charity, but he's met with shocking indifference, even hostility from this grave-looking orator who just finished haranguing a crowd on charity, but is quick to condemn Candide for his ignorance about the Pope. His wife even dumps water on him.
Unbelievable. It's a non-Christian, an honest Anabaptist named James, who finally shows true compassion. He cleans him, feeds him, gives Candide money, and offers to teach him his trade. Candide, momentarily forgetting his recent traumas, briefly believes Pangloss was right again. He says, "Everything was for the best in this world, for I am infinitely more affected with your extraordinary generosity than with the inhumanity of that gentleman in the black cloak and his wife."
It's a fragile optimism, isn't it? Always being tested.
So fragile.
Yeah.
And it's immediately challenged in Chapter 4, how Candide found his old master Pangloss again, and what happened to him. The very next day, Candide encounters a beggar in this truly deplorable state, all covered with scabs, his eyes sunk in his head, the end of his nose eaten off, just awful. Candide, moved by compassion, gives him the 2 florins James had just given him. And this act of kindness leads to a really shocking reunion.
The beggar embraces Candide and reveals himself to be Pangloss. Candide is aghast. He asks about Cunigund, about the castle. Pangloss, in this disturbingly matter-of-fact tone, delivers the devastating news. Cunigund was ripped open by the Bulgarian soldiers, the Baron and Baroness brutally murdered, their son killed, the castle utterly destroyed.
Just wiped out.
Candide faints twice. When he recovers, he asks about Pangloss's own wretched condition. Pangloss, with a kind of dramatic flourish, explains it was love, the comfort of the human species. Having contracted syphilis from the chambermaid Paquette, remember her?
Oh, yes. The one who sparked Cunigund's experimental philosophy. It all comes back around.
It does.
Pangloss then offers this truly twisted, darkly humorous justification for his suffering. He presents a strange genealogy of the disease, tracing it back to Christopher Columbus's adventures.
Seriously.
Seriously. He insists it was a necessary ingredient in the best of worlds because without it, we should have had neither chocolate nor cochineal.
That's insane reasoning.
It's insane. This scene brilliantly exposes the intellectual gymnastics Pangloss performs to maintain his philosophical system, even facing immense personal suffering. He prioritizes upholding this abstract theory over acknowledging real-world misery. It's quite something.
And Candide, despite his own suffering, arranges for James, good old James, to pay for Pangloss's cure, which results in Pangloss losing one eye and an ear.
Small price to pay for chocolate and cochineal, apparently.
Apparently. The bad luck just keeps rolling in Chapter 5. A tempest, a shipwreck, an earthquake, and what else befell Dr. Pangloss Candide and James the Anabaptist? They're on a voyage to Lisbon. A terrible tempest strikes, wrecks their ship. In a moment of true heroism, James the Anabaptist saves this brutal sailor who had previously struck him. But in the process, James is thrown overboard and drowns, completely ignored by the very sailor he just rescued.
Ugh, that's just cruel. A cruel illustration of ingratitude. Pangloss, witnessing James drown, remains philosophically unperturbed. He argues the roadstead of Lisbon was made on purpose for James to drown there, still clinging to his doctrine of pre-established harmony.
Still, after all this.
Still, this is the idea that all events are part of some divinely ordained, perfectly designed plan. Moments later, the ship founders completely. Only Pangloss, Candide, and that villainous sailor survive. They reach Lisbon just as the famous 1755 earthquake strikes.
The historical event.
The real one. The city is utterly devastated. 30,000 inhabitants buried beneath the ruins. It profoundly challenged optimism across Europe.
And the reactions to this disaster are so stark, aren't they? The sailor rushes off to plunder the ruins.
Typical.
Candide thinks it's the day of judgment, and Pangloss, ever the philosopher, offers this detached, scientific, but ultimately useless explanation about a train of sulfur from Lima.
Not helpful.
Not helpful at all. Even as Candide lies wounded, begging for oil and wine, Pangloss gets into this detached debate with a familiar of the Inquisition about original sin, free will, necessity.
While people are dying around them.
Exactly. It profoundly highlights the disconnect between abstract philosophical discussions and immediate, visceral human suffering.
And if you thought it couldn't possibly get any worse, Chapter 6. How the Portuguese made a superb auto de fe to prevent any future earthquakes, and how Candide underwent public flagellation. Well, it proves you wrong.
Oh, boy.
And this chilling display of religious zeal and just flawed logic. The sages of Portugal decide the most effective way to prevent future earthquakes is to hold an auto de fe.
An auto de fe. Remind us.
It was a public act of penance, often involving the torture and execution of heretics, usually by burning them alive. The University of Coimbra decrees that burning a few people alive by a slow fire will be an infallible preventative against earthquakes.
That's horrific logic.
It's beyond horrific. The chosen victims include a Biscayan man for marrying his godmother, 2 Portuguese men for the crime of not eating bacon, implying they might be secretly Jewish.
Right.
And, astonishingly, Dr. Pangloss himself for speaking his mind, and Candide for seeming to approve what he had said.
Just for listening.
Basically. They're paraded in San Benito's those ritual garments and paper miters. Candide's has flames painted upside down. Pangloss's has upright flames and devils with tails and claws, indicating more severe condemnation.
So Candide is publicly flogged, the others are burned, and Pangloss is hanged. And what happens next immediately after this supposed infallible preventive?
The very same day, there's another earthquake, which made most dreadful havoc.
Oh.
Irony doesn't even begin to cover it.
No kidding. Candide is left amazed, terrified, confounded, astonished, all bloody and trembling from head to foot. Absolutely. This experience finally pushes him to the brink of questioning Pangloss's core tenet. He cries out, "If this is the best of all possible worlds, what are the others?" He laments the fate of Pangloss, James, Cunigund. This moment marks a critical turning point in his understanding of the world. It shatters his inherited optimism.
It's not just Candide giving up on a philosophy, is it? It's Voltaire forcing us to question how we process catastrophic events and the maybe false comfort we derive from simple explanations.
Yeah, and just as he's at his absolute lowest, this old woman appears, telling him, "Take courage, child, and follow me." which of course sets the stage for the next phase of his adventures. So with Candide now utterly disabused of his blissful ignorance, his journey only gets more bizarre somehow. We move into part 2, Reunions and Revelations, covering chapters 7 through 12.
Right.
Here Candide continues his chaotic quest, but finds some unexpected company and hears even more shocking stories of resilience, which further challenge his developing worldview.
Yeah, this section introduces characters who endured arguably even greater suffering than Candide. It challenges his burgeoning cynicism with their own grim realities. They offer different perspectives on survival, on the nature of misfortune. It's really a narrative strategy by Voltaire to broaden the scope of human misery beyond just Candide's immediate experiences.
Okay, kicking off part 2 in chapter 7. How the old woman took care of Candide and how he found the object of his love, the old woman who appeared at the end of the last chapter. She turns out to be this beacon of practical charity. She leads Candide to a decayed house, anoints his sores from the flogging, feeds him, provides clothes.
Practical kindness.
Yes, and she invokes various saints to protect him, a really stark contrast to the earlier hypocritical religious figures they encountered.
Candide is profoundly struck with amazement by her kindness, which, let's face it, he hasn't often encountered in his tumultuous travels.
Really new.
After 2 days of care, the old woman takes him, veiled, to this richly furnished apartment in a secluded house. Candide, with a trembling hand, removes the veil, and behold, it's Miss Cunigund.
No way.
Yes. They both faint, naturally. They recover, they begin to speak, their questions and answers interrupted with sighs, tears, and exclamations. It's an emotional reunion, to say the least, but one that immediately challenges Candide's preconceived notions.
Because Candide, in disbelief, asks if she was not ravished or had her body ripped open, as Pangloss had claimed. And Cunigund calmly replies, "Indeed, but they did, but these two accidents do not always prove mortal."
Wow. Just matter of fact.
Completely. She confirms her parents and brother were indeed killed. This revelation immediately challenges the absolute finality of death in Candide's previous experiences. It introduces this new layer of resilience, of survival, even through the most horrific circumstances. This isn't just about her survival, it's about the stark, unromantic reality of surviving trauma.
And we get her side of the story in Chapter 8, Cunigund's story. She recounts her own harrowing ordeal after Candide's expulsion. She saw her family murdered, fainted, and was then subjected to an attempted rape by a tall Bulgarian soldier. She notes, with a kind of dark humor almost, that this horrific event paradoxically brought me to my senses.
Grim humor.
Very grim. Her suffering continues relentlessly. A Bulgarian captain kills the soldier who attacked her, takes Cunigund as a prisoner of war, and she becomes his cook wench. He eventually gambles away all his money and sells her to a Jew, Don Issachar, who's described as passionately fond of women.
This is where Cunigund's story takes a particularly, cynical turn, doesn't it? The Grand Inquisitor sees her at Mass and, coveting her, threatens Don Issachar with an auto-da-fe if he doesn't give her up.
The ultimate threat in that context.
Right, so they strike this bizarre and cynical compromise.
Yeah.
The house and Cunigund are shared. The Jew gets Monday, Wednesday, and the Sabbath, and the Inquisitor gets the other 4 days.
It's a transaction. She's literally property being divided up.
Exactly. It highlights how women, even those of high birth, were treated as commodities back then. It's brutal.
And then Cunigund recounts witnessing the very auto-da-fe where Pangloss was hanged and Candide was whipped.
She saw him.
She saw him. She observed Candide's whiter and more blooming skin, confirming she saw his suffering firsthand. She declares, with this stark understanding born of experience, Pangloss deceived me most cruelly in saying that everything is for the best.
A complete rejection of optimism.
Totally, based on her own harrowing experiences. Her story then ends abruptly when Don Issachar arrives to claim his privilege, which sets up the next dramatic confrontation.
And that confrontation just explodes in Chapter 9. What happened to Cunigund, Candide, the Grand Inquisitor, and the Jew? Don Issachar, described as the most choleric little Hebrew, finds Candide with Cunigund and furiously attacks him.
Understandable, perhaps, given the arrangement.
Maybe. Candide, armed with a sword given to him by the old woman, defends himself and kills the Jew. Cunigund cries out, fearing the peace officers and the consequences. Candide laments Pangloss's absence for advice.
Always falling back on Pangloss.
But the sensible old woman, ever practical, steps in to offer counsel. Just then, the Grand Inquisitor arrives, claiming his Sunday privilege, completely unaware of the bloody scene that awaits him.
Terrible timing. Candide, with this sudden and clear and instantaneous flash of reasoning, thinks, Okay, the Inquisitor had me whipped. He is now my rival for Cunningham, and he will undoubtedly have us burned.
Logical deduction.
So he declares, as I have now begun to dip my hands in blood, I will kill away, for there is no time to hesitate. And he promptly runs the Inquisitor through.
Just like that, Cunningham is astonished by Candide's sudden ruthlessness.
Yeah, where did that come from? Candide explains his logic. When a man is in love, is jealous, and has been flogged by the Inquisition, he becomes lost to all reflection.
Fair point, maybe.
The old woman, remaining incredibly practical, suggests they flee immediately on 3 Andalusian horses to Cadiz. And in a final, cynical detail from Voltaire, the Inquisitor is given this magnificent burial in Lisbon, while Issachar's body is just thrown upon a dunghill.
Highlighting the social disparities even in death.
Exactly, reflecting Voltaire's critique of the Church's power and hypocrisy.
So their misfortunes continue in Chapter 10. In what distress Candide, Cunningham, and the old woman arrive at Cadiz and of their embarkation. Cunningham discovers her moidores and jewels have been stolen. The old woman suspects a Franciscan friar who stayed at the same inn.
Seems plausible given their luck.
Right. Candide, with a touch of his old naivete perhaps, recalls Pangloss's doctrine that the goods of this world are common to all men.
Oh, Candide. The practical solution is found by the old woman, naturally. Sell one of their horses. She, despite having only one buttock to ride on, we'll get to, that insists on riding with Cunningham, and they eventually reach Cadiz. This constant improvisation for survival is just a key theme, isn't it?
Absolutely. Then, a remarkable turn. Candide, having served briefly and brutally in the Bulgarian army, performs their military exercises before the general of a small army heading to the New World. He does it with such intrepid an air and with such agility and expedition that he's immediately made captain of a company.
Our accidental killer is now an accidental military leader.
Exactly. They then embark for Paraguay, of all places, to fight the Jesuits there. It's such an unlikely turn of events.
During the voyage, Candide and Cunningham debate Pangloss's philosophy again. Cunningham shudders at her past experiences. The old woman, overhearing their complaints about their relatively minor recent misfortunes, challenges Cunningham. She asserts that her own sufferings far outweigh Cunningham's.
Uh-oh. One-upmanship and suffering?
Kind of. She then offers to tell her story to convince them. This narrative device sets up the next 2 chapters, which delves into an even deeper well of human misery. It really provides perspective on what constitutes true misfortune and universalizes the experience of suffering.
And what a story it is, as we learn in Chapter 11, the history of the old woman. She reveals this astonishing past. She is the daughter of Pope Urban X, yes, a pope, and the Princess of Palestrina.
A pope's daughter.
Raised in a castle so grand it dwarfed German baronies. She was beautiful, witty, betrothed to a sovereign prince. This isn't some common vagrant. She comes from the highest echelons of society.
Demonstrating that suffering spares no one, high or low born.
Exactly. But her bliss is short-lived. Her fiancé dies of convulsions after drinking chocolate with an old marchioness. A strange detail.
A bit random, yeah.
Her distraught mother then takes her on a gilded galley where they are tragically boarded by Sally Rover's pirates. The Moors immediately strip them bare and subject them to this rude sort of surgical examination of sacred body parts.
Good Lord.
The old woman learns this practice is to find concealed diamonds, and she notes with this chilling impartiality that it's also common among the religious knights of Malta.
Wow, so hypocrisy and brutality across the board.
Right. This is a profound moment, highlighting the universal dehumanization of captivity and the shared venality across different cultures and religions. No one group is depicted as inherently better or worse here.
They're then taken to Morocco, which is just deluged in civil war. 50 sons of the Emperor Muley Ismail are each leading a party, resulting in 50 civil wars of blacks against blacks, of tawnies against tawnies, and of mulattoes against mulattoes. She witnesses this incredibly brutal battle over the captives, where her own mother is mangled and torn in pieces.
Horrific.
And amidst this carnage, she observes, with profound irony, that the fighters never missed the 5 stated times of prayer enjoined by their prophet Muhammad.
The dissonance is staggering.
Staggering. She's left alone, expiring upon a heap of dead bodies.
And her adventures continue, somehow getting even worse in Chapter 12. The adventures of the old woman continued. Near death, she's found by a pretty fair-faced man speaking Italian. He turns out to be a eunuch born in Naples, where thousands of children were castrated annually for the choirs, apparently, and he was a singer in her mother's chapel.
Small world, even amid such horror. But the reunion is tragically short-lived. The eunuch, instead of taking her to Italy as promised, sells her to the Dey of Algiers.
Sold again.
Sold again. Here, she experiences the plague, which she asserts is far worse than an earthquake. The Dey and most of his seraglio die. Yet, she survives.
She's incredibly resilient.
Her odyssey of suffering truly knows no bounds. She's sold from merchant to merchant, Tunis, Tripoli, Alexandria, Smyrna, Constantinople, eventually becoming the property of an aga of the Janissaries who takes her to the siege of Azov.
Another war zone.
Another war zone. Here, faced with extreme famine during the siege, the defending Janissaries kill and eat 2 eunuchs. When that meager supply is exhausted, a pious and humane man, as Voltaire ironically puts it, persuades them not to kill all the women, but to
Oh, no.
cut off only one of the buttocks of each of those ladies for a sustained food supply.
They did.
Yes. The old woman bravely undergoes this operation. She's eventually cured by French surgeons, but then in a darkly comic turn is made certain proposals by them. She's then sent to Moscow, beaten daily, and finally escapes.
This is just relentless. Her life becomes one of ceaseless toil as an innkeeper's servant across Europe, and she reflects on the ridiculous weakness of being fond of life despite its immense burden. She notes that few specifically, 3 Negroes, 4 Englishmen, as many Genovese, and a German professor named Robeck, voluntarily end their misery despite wishing to be eased of life's burdens.
It's a crucial observation, isn't it, about humanity's inherent will to survive, no matter how dire the circumstances.
Definitely.
She concludes her story by asserting her vast knowledge and experience of the world's miseries. She challenges Candide and Cunigund. If they can find anyone who hasn't cursed his existence many times, she'll let them throw her into the sea.
Quite the challenge.
Quite the challenge. This powerful and grotesque narrative provides such a stark, realistic counterpoint to Pangloss's idealism, and even to Candide's and Cunigund's own perceived extensive sufferings. She truly has seen the worst of the worst, presenting this picture of relentless global misery.
What an incredible, horrifying story from the old woman. But Candide and his companions, they're not done with their travels yet. We now move into part 3, New Worlds, Old Problems, covering chapters 13 through 18. Candide, with his companions, ventures into the Americas, encountering supposed utopias and, well, fresh forms of human depravity.
Yeah, this section offers a distinct geographical shift, but Voltaire's underlying critique remains pretty consistent, doesn't it?
It seems so.
Even in new lands and supposedly perfect societies, the fundamental flaws of humanity, whether from European invaders or inherent tribalism, they persist, often in surprising and ironic ways. It's really a testament to the universality of human nature, for better or often for worse.
So, in chapter 13, how Candide was obliged to leave the fair Cunigund and the old woman, Candide and Cunigund, having heard the old woman's harrowing tale, now treat her with immense respect, as you'd imagine.
Right.
They arrive at Buenos Aires and meet the governor, Don Fernando de Parra y Figueroa y Mascarenes y Lampourdos y Sousa.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
Isn't it? A nobleman of immense haughtiness and a clear fondness for women.
The governor immediately takes a keen interest in Cunigund. When asked if she's Candide's wife, Candide, in his simple honesty, admits they're not married, but that she is to do him the honor of marrying him.
Honest, but maybe not strategic.
Not strategic at all. This truthfulness opens the door for the governor's intentions. The old woman, ever the pragmatist and survivalist, advises Cunigund to accept the governor's advances and marry him.
Marry the governor.
Yes. She argues that Cunigund, despite her 72 quarterings of nobility, is penniless, and this is an opportunity to make her fortune, and by extension, Candide's. It highlights this significant shift from idealistic love to cynical practicality, a necessary move for survival in their harsh world.
Just as they're considering this, a small ship arrives in the harbor pursuing the murderers of the Grand Inquisitor. Remember them.
Ah, Candide's handiwork.
Exactly. The old woman quickly assesses the danger. Cunigund must stay with the governor, who is now in love with her and can protect her, but Candide must flee immediately or be burned alive.
They're so close yet so far.
Right. Candide, distraught, is once again separated from his beloved, forced to abandon his plans for their marriage. It's another example of how external forces and Candide's past actions constantly disrupt his attempts at happiness.
In Chapter 14, the reception Candide and Cacambo met with among the Jesuits in Paraguay, Candide finds a new companion. This is Cacambo, a mongrel breed footman, part Spanish, born in Tucumán.
A man of many talents, apparently.
Oh yeah, Cacambo is a man of many former trades: singing boy, sexton, sailor, monk, peddler, soldier, lackey. and he proves to be fiercely loyal and immensely resourceful. His practical intelligence just shines through immediately.
Okay.
He advises Candide to flee, suggesting they join the Jesuits in Paraguay, the very people Candide was originally sent to fight.
The irony.
Exactly. Cacambo describes the Jesuit kingdom as an admirable government, where the fathers control everything, the people have no money, calling it a masterpiece of justice and reason. He even boasts of their ability to kill Spaniards in America and send them to heaven at Madrid, revealing this complex political landscape driven by self-interest disguised as piety.
So Candide and Cacambo arrive and are immediately disarmed, their horses seized. They're told they must wait 3 hours and that no Spaniard may speak without the provincial father's permission. Cacambo cleverly states Candide is German, not Spanish, circumventing this rule.
Smart thinking.
The Reverend Father Commandant is described as a handsome, young, fair-colored man. He offers Candide this lavish breakfast in a beautiful pavilion with green marble colonnades, exotic birds, while the local Paraguayans are seen eating coarse Indian corn out of wooden dishes in the scorching sun.
Not quite equal then.
Not quite. This stark contrast subtly critiques the supposed justice and reason of the Jesuit regime, revealing its own forms of inequality and control, despite its claims of utopian governance.
And the story takes another surprising twist in Chapter 15. How Candide killed the brother of his dear Cunigund. The Commandant speaks German and asks Candide's origin. Candide mentions the castle of Thunder Ten Tronc, a name that clearly resonates.
Oh.
The Commandant exclaims, "Oh heavens, is it possible? It's Cunigund's brother, the Baron."
The Baron. But Candide thought he killed him.
Exactly, whom Candide thought he had killed back in Paraguay. They embrace, they weep profusely, a moment of profound, albeit temporary, joy and disbelief. It adds another layer to the novel's theme of unexpected resurrections from seemingly certain death.
So Candide, overjoyed, declares his intention to marry Cunigund. This, for him, is the ultimate goal, right? The restoration of his lost paradise, or at least a semblance of it.
However, the Baron's old aristocratic pride immediately resurfaces. It completely overrides any gratitude or shared experience of suffering. He cries, "Insolent fellow, you have the impudence to marry my sister, who bears 72 quarterings.
72 quarterings, even after everything.
Even after being run through, joining the Jesuits, escaping, he then strikes Candide with the flat of his sword. This just reveals that despite his own near-death experience, his new role as a Jesuit priest, his time in the supposedly admirable government, his aristocratic prejudice and class snobbery remain entirely unchanged. It's a powerful illustration of ingrained human flaws.
So Candide, thunderstruck at the oddness of this speech, replies that mankind are by nature equal, and he will marry Cunigund. Enraged by the Baron's inflexibility and attack, he draws his rapier and plunges it into the Baron's body again.
Again, he laments, "Good God! I have killed my old master, my friend, my brother-in-law. I am the best man in the world, and yet I have already killed 3 men, and of these 3, 2 were priests."
He's keeping count.
He is. Cacambo, ever resourceful, quickly strips the Baron, dresses Candide in the Jesuit habit, and they gallop away, Cacambo shouting, "Make way for the Reverend Father Colonel."
Another escape in disguise.
It's a repeated pattern in Candide's life, isn't it?
Yeah.
His good intentions and actions are often followed by unexpected violence and further flight, ironically demonstrating how his naive belief in human goodness is constantly undermined by the world around him.
In Chapter 16, what happened to our 2 travelers with 2 girls, 2 monkeys, and the savages called Orions? Candide and Cacambo flee. Candide still consumed by guilt over killing the Baron, again, and his separation from Cunigund. They hear cries and find 2 disrobed young women being bitten by 2 monkeys.
Yeah.
Candide, acting the hero, shoots the monkeys, believing he's rescued the girls. But here's the twist. The girls immediately embrace the dead monkeys, crying inconsolably.
They. Cacambo, the knowing valet, reveals that the monkeys were the girls' lovers.
Lovers.
Monkeys? Yes. Candide is astonished. Cacambo explains that in this country, monkeys insinuate themselves into the good graces of the ladies. It's a bizarre and darkly humorous illustration of different cultural norms, the arbitrary nature of what's considered natural or acceptable.
Bizarre indeed. This strange incident leads directly to their capture by the Orions, savages who inhabit that country. The girls inform them of Candide and Cacambo's presence, and they are bound and prepared to be roasted or boiled. The Orions are crying, "A Jesuit! A Jesuit! We shall be revenged! We shall have excellent cheer! Let us eat this Jesuit! Let us eat him up!"
And Candide is dressed as a Jesuit, the irony.
Right. Candide exclaims, "Ah, What would Pangloss say if he were to see how pure nature is formed? It's an echo of his old master's philosophy, but now tinged with this desperate irony.
Cacambo, though, maintains his presence of mind. He uses his knowledge of their jargon. He cleverly convinces the Orions that Candide is not a Jesuit, but has recently killed one and is wearing his spoils.
Quick thinking.
Very. The Aurelians, upon verification, show them civilities, offer them girls, and escort them out, shouting, "He is no Jesuit! He is no Jesuit!" Candide, ever reflecting, marvels, "Pure nature is an excellent thing," highlighting its capricious and often brutal reality. Even in pure nature, humanity finds reasons for conflict and prejudice.
So after more arduous travel through mountains and rivers, their horses die, provisions run out. They're subsisting on wild fruit, and Cacambo suggests they take an empty canoe down a river. This leads them, finally, to chapter 17. Candide and his valet arrive in the country of El Dorado, what they saw there.
El Dorado, the legendary city of gold.
Exactly. They emerge from this dark, rapid passage into a spacious plain. This country is immediately striking. It's cultivated for both pleasure and necessity, where the useful and agreeable were here equally blended. They see carriages made of glittering materials drawn by these huge red sheep.
Red sheet.
Red sheep. And Candide, in a moment of renewed hope, declares it preferable to Westphalia. High praise from him.
This is truly a utopian vision. They see children playing quoits like horseshoes with large, round pieces, yellow, red, and green, that emit this glorious luster.
And Kamek realizes these are gold, emeralds, rubies, diamonds, the least of which would adorn the superb throne of the great mogul. But when the schoolmaster comes to call the children in,
What does he do?
he casually flings the jewels aside, showing contempt for gold and precious stones. It's such a striking image, it immediately sets the society apart from Europe.
Completely different values. They then visit an inn resembling a European palace. Cacambo, speaking the local Peruvian language, acts as interpreter. They're served this lavish meal on rock crystal dishes, but when they offer their gold and jewels for payment, the landlord just laughs. Laughs. He explains that all inns are free, maintained by the government, and they're pebbles of our highways. The gold and jewels are worthless as currency. This reveals a truly utopian society that has transcended the European obsession with material wealth and the corruptions it brings. The absence of currency itself removes a primary source of conflict and greed.
And the utopian vision just continues in chapter 18, what they saw in the country of El Dorado. Cacambo questions an old man, 172 years old, who is the most learned and communicative person in the kingdom.
172.
Right. His house, though described as plain, has a silver door and a beaten gold ceiling. The old man explains El Dorado's history as the ancient patrimony of the Incas. Their ancestors wisely chose isolation to preserve their innocence and happiness from the rapacious fury of the people of Europe and their unaccountable fondness for the pebbles and dirt of our land.
A harsh critique of European colonialism. Candide, with his enduring taste for metaphysics, asks about religion. The old man blushes, asking, can there be two religions? He explains they worship one God, not asking for anything but giving thanks incessantly.
Simple gratitude.
Simple gratitude. Everyone is a priest. There are no monks, no disputes, no burning people of differing opinions. It is a society free from religious hypocrisy and conflict, a profound contrast to the auto da fe Candide experienced.
Candide is just in raptures at this revelation. He's thinking, what a prodigious difference is there between this place and Westphalia? Ah, Master Pangloss, had you ever seen El Dorado, you would no longer have maintained that the castle of Thunder Ten Tronc was the finest of all possible edifices.
It's a huge intellectual breakthrough for him, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a moment where he truly sees a better way, a true best of all possible worlds, which actually exists.
They tour the capital, marveling at public structures, reared their lofty heads to the clouds, fountains flowing with rose water and sugarcane liquor, markets adorned with columns. Crucially, they find no high court of justice, no parliament, no lawsuits, no prisons.
No prisons.
No prisons. The Palace of Sciences is this vast gallery of mathematical and natural philosophy apparatus. The king receives them warmly, and they spend a month in this truly utopian land, experiencing true peace and abundance. This is Voltaire's ideal, isn't it? A society founded on reason and justice, not dogma or greed.
It seems so. Yet despite this seemingly perfect existence, Candide cannot shake his longing for Cunigund. He resolves to leave El Dorado.
Leave El Dorado? Why?
For Cunigund. He decides to take only a dozen of El Dorado's sheep, loaded with the pebbles of this country, to become richer than European kings and free his beloved. His personal desire, even for an individual, outweighs the benefits of a utopian society. It's a deeply human, if, well, maybe somewhat naive decision.
The king cautions them that they're doing a rash and silly action, but respects their freedom, stating, "All men are by nature free." He provides a miraculous machine to get them over the mountains. 100 red sheep, 50 laden with gold, diamonds, and precious stones and escorts to the mountain pass.
A generous parting gift.
Very. Candide, again optimistic, believes he has more than enough to buy Cunigund, still clinging to the idea that wealth can solve all problems. His departure from El Dorado is such a clear illustration of humanity's inability to truly appreciate or remain in a perfect state,
Yeah.
often driven by personal desires and societal conditioning. It shows that even a perfect world can't hold those whose hearts are tied to the imperfections outside.
What a contrast indeed. From a true utopia, we journey right back into the chaos. This brings us to part 4. Return to the Worst of Worlds, covering chapters 19 through 25. Candide leaves El Dorado, only to face even more profound disillusionment and encounters with human depravity. It ultimately solidifies a new, much darker worldview for him.
Yeah, this section marks a significant shift in Candide's character. The relentless parade of human cruelty and suffering forces him to finally, if maybe reluctantly, abandon the last vestiges of Panglossian optimism.
It had to happen eventually.
It did. His journey becomes this search for a viable, realistic philosophy for living in a deeply flawed world, especially as his vast wealth and hope are systematically stripped away.
Their journey from El Dorado quickly brings that disillusionment in chapter 19. What happened to them at Suriname and how Candide became acquainted with Martin. First, the sheep start dying. 2 sink in a morass, 2 die of fatigue, 7 or 8 perish of hunger, others fall down precipices. After 100 days, only 2 sheep remain of the original 102 treasure-laden animals.
So much for El Dorado's riches. They quickly prove perishable. Candide reflects, "You see, my dear friend, how perishable the riches of this world are. There is nothing solid but virtue."
A nice sentiment, but
Right. It shows a shift away from material gain as the sole measure of happiness, though his hope for Cunigund remains intrinsically tied to his ability to pay for her freedom with his remaining wealth. Then they have this truly shocking encounter.
yes.
They meet a Negro slave in Suriname, missing a left leg and a right hand. The slave explains the brutal reality of sugar production in the Dutch colonies. A lost finger at the mill means a chopped hand. An attempt to run away means a cut-off leg. "It is at this price you eat sugar in Europe," he tells them. He reveals his mother sold him for 10 patacoons, telling him he would make the fortune of us thy parents.
That line.
Yeah.
It is at this price you eat sugar in Europe. Just devastating. The slave's poignant critique is one of the most powerful moments in the entire work, isn't it?
Absolutely. He says, "Dogs, monkeys, and parrots are 1,000 times less wretched than I." He directly questions the Christian doctrine of common fatherhood when blacks are treated so cruelly by whites, highlighting the hypocrisy of European civilization.
And this powerful, shocking encounter finally breaks Candide's lingering optimism. For good, it seems.
It seems so. He exclaims, "O Pangloss, I find myself after all obliged to renounce thy optimism." He then provides his own rather bitter definition of optimism: the obstinacy of maintaining that everything is best when it is worst.
Wow, that's a definition. He weeps and enters Suriname, profoundly affected.
Learning that Cunigund is now the governor of Buenos Aires' favorite mistress, Candide is distraught. He makes a pragmatic decision: send Cacambo to rescue her with millions in diamonds, while he himself will go to Venice, supposedly a free country, to wait.
Dividing forces.
Right. This marks a new phase, relying on others and attempting to navigate the world's harsh realities with strategic wealth, recognizing that money, though perishable, is a necessary tool for survival and achieving his goals.
In chapter 20, what befell Candide and Martin on their passage, Candide, waiting for a ship to Venice, is once again swindled, this time by a Dutch skipper, Mynheer van der Dender.
Another trustworthy character, I assume.
Oh, totally. The skipper demands increasingly higher prices for passage 10,000, then 20,000, then 30,000 piastres, which Candide pays with the diamonds. The cunning skipper then sails away with Candide's 2 remaining treasure-laden sheep, leaving him stranded.
Took the sheep, too. Candide, utterly devastated by this betrayal, declares, "Alas, this is a trick like those in our old world." He appeals to a Dutch magistrate, who, with cool insolence, fines him twice for petulance and court fees.
Adding insult to injury.
Right. This series of events further entrenches his disillusionment with human nature and the corrupt systems he encounters. Seeking companionship for his onward journey, Candide offers passage and 10,000 piastres to the most dissatisfied with his condition and the most unfortunate in the whole province.
An interesting competition.
A vast crowd of candidates appears, all claiming their wretchedness. From this crowd, he chooses a poor scholar named Martin. Martin is a Manichaean philosopher.
Manichaean.
Basically, for Martin, the world is a constant battle between opposing good and evil forces, and he often suggests a malevolent power is largely in control. His worldview is the polar opposite of Pangloss's optimism.
Got it. So, as they sail, they witness a naval battle where 100 men drown. Candide notes that the victorious ship belonged to Spain, and the sinking one was, by a stroke of ironic fate, the Dutch pirate who had just robbed him.
Poetic justice.
Candide thinks so. He remarks, vice is sometimes punished.
But Martin retorts with his characteristic pessimism. Why should the passengers be doomed also to destruction? God has punished the knave and the devil has drowned the rest.
Oof. Dark.
It's a stark reminder of his philosophy.
Yeah.
If there's good, there must be bad, and often the innocent suffer alongside the guilty. Miraculously, though, one red sheep from El Dorado is recovered from the wreckage.
One sheep survived.
One sheep. A small glimmer of hope amidst the chaos, renewing Candide's fragile optimism for Cunigund. This moment is so important because it suggests that hope, however fleeting, is an essential part of Candide's character, a counterpoint to Martin's unwavering cynicism.
As they continue their journey in chapter 21, Candide and Martin, while thus reasoning with each other, draw near to the coast of France. Candide asks Martin about France, their next stop.
And Martin's description is characteristically cynical. France is full of fools, madmen, artful people, hypocrites.
Doesn't paint a pretty picture.
Not at all. Paris in particular is a chaos, where everyone seeks pleasure but finds none. He recounts being robbed, imprisoned, observing widespread slander and nonsense there, all confirming his jaded view of humanity.
Candide, largely unimpressed and still focused on his primary goal, declares he only wishes to see Cunigund in Venice. Their philosophical debates now between Candide's wavering hope and Martin's staunch pessimism continue.
The new dynamic duo.
Right. Candide asks if the world was originally sea. Martin dismisses it as a chimera. When asked why the world was formed, Martin bluntly replies, to make us mad.
Cheerful fellow.
Candide ponders if mankind has always been so full of lies, fraud, treachery, ingratitude, inconstancy, envy, ambition, and cruelty. Martin simply asks if hawks have always been accustomed to eat pigeons.
Good question.
When Candide agrees, Martin concludes, if hawks have always had the same nature, why should you pretend that mankind changed theirs?
Wow. That's a direct challenge to the notion of human exceptionalism, isn't it? Suggesting human nature, like animal nature, is fundamentally unchanging.
Yeah. Candide weakly offers free will as a counter-argument, highlighting his struggle to reconcile human nature with the horrors he's witnessed.
In chapter 22, what happened to Candide and Martin in France? They arrive in Bordeaux. Candide sells more El Dorado pebbles. In a humorous dig at academic pedantry, he leaves one of his red sheep with the Academy of Sciences there to solve the mystery of its color. A northern sage wins the prize by proving via A plus BCZ that it must be red and die of mange.
Voltaire mocking pseudoscience again.
Absolutely. In Paris, Candide, now wealthy once more, immediately attracts unwanted attention. He's surrounded by two uninvited physicians, two women devotees trying to extract money and a religious note. Martin notes that when he was poor in Paris, he had no such attendants but recovered just fine, illustrating the corrupting influence of wealth and superficiality.
They encounter the superficiality and hypocrisy of Parisian society in full swing. Candide is moved by a tragedy at the playhouse, but this cluster of wits around him scorn it and the actors. An abbé of Périgord explains that actresses are respected when alive and beautiful, but their bodies are thrown upon a dunghill upon death, denied Christian burial, like a famous actress, Miss Monimia.
Highlighting the double standards and moral hypocrisy. Martin confirms this as typical contradictions and inconsistencies in France. He observed that Parisians laugh with anger in their hearts and commit the most detestable crimes with a smile on their faces.
Chilling observation. They attend a salon where the Marchioness of Paralignac runs a high-stakes game of basset. Candide, in his naivete, loses 1,000 pieces.
Easily done.
The conversation at the salon is full of insipid jokes, false reports, literary criticism. The Marchioness then subtly seduces Candide, who, oblivious to her intentions, is flattered, and she expertly extracts 2 large diamonds from him.
Smooth operator. The cunning abbé then uses information gleaned from Candide to orchestrate a trap. Candide receives a fake letter from Cunegonde claiming she's ill in Paris.
Oh, Candide, no.
He rushes to her, showering the impostor with diamonds and gold. He's then promptly arrested as a suspected foreigner. It's a testament to his enduring naivete and hope, even after everything.
He cries, "Travelers are not treated in this manner in the country of El Dorado."
A stark contrast indeed. Martin, seeing the scam, advises Candide to bribe the officer with free diamonds. The officer, suddenly very obliging, escorts them to Dieppe. Candide, utterly disgusted, exclaims, "Is there no flying this abominable country immediately, this execrable kingdom where monkeys provoke tigers? I've seen bears in my country, but men I have beheld nowhere but in El Dorado." His disillusionment with Europe seems complete now.
Their turbulent journey continues in chapter 23. Candide and Martin touch upon the English coast, what they see there. On the Dutch ship heading towards England, Candide, again full of despair, exclaims, "Oh, Pangloss, Pangloss, oh, Martin, oh, my dear Miss Cunegonde, what sort of a world is this?"
And Martin simply says, "Why, something very foolish and very abominable." Consistent, if nothing else.
Right. Martin describes the English as fools, but in a different manner than the French. He points out the absurdity of their war, the 7 Years' War, presumably over a few acres of barren land in the neighborhood of Canada, costing more than Canada is worth. He finds them generally dark and gloomy.
Another bleak assessment of a European nation driven by petty conflicts.
And what happens next at Portsmouth is truly shocking. They witness a public execution. A lusty man is kneeling blindfolded, shot by 4 soldiers.
An execution, why?
Candide, horrified, asks who the man was and why he was killed. He learns it was an admiral, likely Admiral Byng, historically executed because he did not put a sufficient number of his fellow creatures to death.
What?
Specifically, he was not near enough to his antagonist in an engagement with a French admiral. And this extreme measure is done, Candide is told, to encourage the others to fight.
That is incredibly cynical and brutal. The sheer, cold-blooded pragmatism of this act deeply shocks Candide. It illustrates Voltaire's contempt for senseless military violence and the arbitrary nature of justice.
Candide is so shocked at what he saw and heard, he refuses to even set foot on English soil. He immediately bargains with the Dutch skipper to take him directly to Venice, still clinging to that hope of finding Cunegonde.
Still holding on.
Upon arrival in Venice, he embraces Martin, proclaiming, with a rather fragile return to his old self, "All is well, all is very well, all as well as possible."
Wow. His optimism, despite everything, is remarkably resilient, isn't it, though clearly vulnerable. It shows his enduring capacity to seek light amidst the darkness.
In chapter 24, of Paquette and Friar Giroflee in Venice, Candide fruitlessly searches every inn, every coffee house for Cacambo and Cunegonde. He falls into this deep melancholy, neglecting the carnival, the opera, even the fair sex. His hope, though resilient, is constantly being battered by reality.
Martin, ever the realist, predicts that Cacambo, now with millions in his pocket, wouldn't actually search for Cunegonde, but would keep the money or find another mistress.
Harsh, but maybe realistic.
He advises Candide to forget both his valet and his mistress, reinforcing Martin's Manichaean view that virtue and happiness are rare and self-interest usually reigns supreme.
Candide then spots a young Thetan friar with a pretty girl in Piazza San Marco, both looking fresh-colored, plump, and vigorous. Candide, with a flicker of his old optimism, wagers they must be happy.
Oh, Candide. Martin readily accepts the wager, of course. Candide invites them to dine, and the girl is revealed to be Paquette.
Paquette, the chambermaid from the castle.
The very same. Who gave Pangloss syphilis? Small world strikes again. She recounts a life of utter misery as a prostitute seduction. Beatings, imprisonment, extortion, perpetual dread of old age, a hospital, or a dunghill. Just awful.
And the friar, Friar Giroflee.
He was forced into monastic life, and likewise expresses profound unhappiness. He wishes with all my soul the Theatans were every one of them at the bottom of the sea. He confesses he only endures it to support his elder brother and pay for his girls, highlighting the pervasive hypocrisy and misery even within religious institutions.
So Martin wins his wager.
Easily. He observes, "You see, I have half won the wager already." And later, with finality, "I have seen the world." Candide, still clinging to hope and believing money can buy happiness, gives them money, thinking it will make them happy.
Will it?
Martin foresees it will only make them more wretched. A cynical prediction that, spoiler alert, will later prove true. Candide, despite all this evidence, still believes he might find Cunegonde and that happiness is just around the corner.
Their quest for happiness, or maybe understanding it, continues in chapter 25. Candide and Martin pay a visit to Signor Pococurante, a noble Venetian. They visit this wealthy senator, supposedly a perfect stranger to uneasiness. His palace and gardens are exquisite.
Sounds promising. Pococurante, however, is consumed by a pleasure in having no pleasure. He is perpetually dissatisfied with everything, demonstrating that even immense wealth and the finest things cannot buy contentment. His pretty servant girls, already very indifferent to him.
He critiques everything Candide praises, doesn't he? Raphael's paintings are dark and heavy, concert music, tiresome after half an hour, operas are monsters, Homer is insipid, Virgil flat and disagreeable, Horace only good for some maxims. He never reads Cicero because Cicero doubted everything.
The ultimate critic. He dismisses the Academy of Sciences memoirs as rubbish, lacking real utility. Most Italian, Spanish, French plays, worthless. He praises the English spirit of freedom but finds it frustrated by passion and the spirit of party. He calls Milton a barbarian who disfigures the creation with melancholy reveries. Even his own beautiful gardens are in bad taste.
Candide, astonished, finds him a prodigious genius, even a second Pangloss for his critical intellect.
But Martin insightfully observes that Pococurante simply dislikes everything he possesses. Martin concludes, there is a pleasure in having no pleasure, suggesting that a life of constant criticism and dissatisfaction can itself become a form of perverse enjoyment.
A critique of the jaded intellectual.
Absolutely. The person who, despite having everything, finds no joy. Candide, despite this encounter with perpetual discontent, still believes he will be the only happy man at last when reunited with Cunigund, still clinging to his personal hope even as the broader world offers nothing but misery.
What a profound and often pretty disheartening tour of human experience we've been on. We've now reached part 5, the final assembly and conclusion, spanning chapters 26 through 30.
The home stretch.
Right. Candide's Odyssey culminates in this surprising reunion of characters, a final philosophical reckoning, and a hard-won practical lesson on how to live in a less-than-perfect world.
Yeah, this concluding section brings together all the disparate threads of Candide's journey. It offers both a satirical summary of human folly and, finally, a pragmatic, if modest, vision for finding contentment amidst life's inherent difficulties. The philosophical debates that began way back with Pangloss, they kind of come to a head here, but the answers aren't found in abstract theory this time.
In chapter 26, Candide and Martin sup with 6 sharpers who they were. Candide is at supper when this man with a face the color of soot takes his arm. It's Cacambo.
Cacambo, he's back.
He's back. Candide is overjoyed, believing Cunigund must be with him. His hopes instantly reignited.
Cacambo quickly dashes those hopes. He reveals that Cunigund is in Constantinople, but she's now horribly ugly, and he himself is a slave. Cacambo then whispers to his master at the table, "Sire, your majesty may go when you please. The ship is ready." A cryptic remark that definitely piques Candide's curiosity.
Your Majesty?
Exactly. The other 5 strangers at the table are also revealed to be dethroned kings, similarly addressed by their servants. They are Akhmet III, the former Ottoman Sultan, Ivan, the former Russian emperor, Charles Edward, the claimant to the English throne, 2 exiled kings of Poland, and Theodore, the elected king of Corsica who'd been imprisoned.
6 dethroned kings having dinner together.
6 dethroned monarchs supping together at a public inn. It's this powerful commentary on the fleeting nature of power, the capriciousness of fortune, the universality of misfortune, affecting even the highest echelons of society.
Wow. And Candide, despite his own ongoing losses, still has some wealth left. He gives Theodore, the most destitute of them, a diamond worth 100 times the sequins given by the other kings.
Showing his continued capacity for generosity and compassion, it's a core aspect of his character, isn't it? Even after enduring so much.
It really is. So, Candide's hopes for Cunigund are immediately renewed in chapter 27. Candide's voyage to Constantinople. He embarks for Constantinople with Martin and the now ransomed Cacambo. He again expresses this fleeting optimism. Pangloss was in the right. All is for the best.
Oh, Candide. Martin, of course, remains skeptical. Cacambo, however, reveals the full, grim extent of Cunigund's degradation. He'd had to pay the governor 2 million piastres for her freedom, but then a pirate stripped them of all the remaining wealth.
Always a pirate.
Always. Cunigund and the old woman are now servants to the prince. Specifically, Cunigund washes dishes on the banks of the Propontis, in the house of a prince who has very few to wash. The most melancholy circumstance for Cacambo, and a clear shock for Candide, is that she is turned horribly ugly.
Horribly ugly after all this hope.
Despite this disheartening news, Candide, to his credit, declares, "Ugly or handsome, I'm a man of honor and as such am obliged to love her still." He still has diamonds to ransom her.
He's sticking by her.
He is. He debates with Martin, whose condition is most pitiable among the dethroned kings and himself. Martin simply states, millions of men on the earth whose conditions are 100 times more pitiable, once again putting Candide's personal sorrows into that wider, more dismal context.
Perspective. As they search on a galley ship, Candide spots two ill-rowing slaves whose features, though greatly disfigured, bear a strong resemblance to Pangloss and the Baron.
No, both of them, alive.
Both. When he utters their names, they cry out, confirming their identity. Candide is utterly astonished, having believed them dead after witnessing their presumed executions. He immediately ransoms them for 50,000 sequins, bringing his old master and Cunegonde's brother back into his orbit, further compressing this circle of his suffering acquaintances.
The incredible survival stories just keep coming in Chapter 28. What befell Candide, Cunegonde, Pangloss, Martin, etc. Candide immediately apologizes to the Baron for, well, running him through. Twice.
Awkward apology.
Very. The Baron explains his miraculous survival and subsequent misfortunes. After being cured by the Jesuits, he was captured by Spanish troops, imprisoned in Buenos Aires, then somehow got to Constantinople, became chaplain to the French ambassador, but was caught bathing naked with a young Turkish man, bastinadoed, and sent to the galleys.
What a life.
And Pangloss, too, recounts his miraculous survival. He was lamely hanged by a novice executioner on a wet rope, so he merely suffocated instead of having his neck broken. A surgeon bought his body for dissection.
For dissection.
Yes. But his crucial incision made Pangloss scream, scaring the surgeon and his wife into believing he was dissecting the devil. A barber then cured him. Later, he was caught putting a nosegay back into a pretty devotee's bosom in a mosque, got bastinadoed, and sent to the galleys, ending up chained to the same bench as the Baron.
You couldn't make this stuff up. Their stories reinforce the arbitrariness of survival, the continuous, often absurd cycle of suffering. It's Voltaire relentlessly exposing human misery.
Candide, utterly bewildered by their continued suffering and survival, asks Pangloss the crucial question. Does he still believe everything in this world happens for the best?
The million-dollar question.
This is a pivotal moment for Pangloss. He replies, I have always abided by my first opinion. It would not become me to retract my sentiments, especially as Leibniz could not be in the wrong. He still clings to pre-established harmony, a plenum, materia sublis, these dense philosophical concepts describing a perfectly ordered, God-designed universe.
Yes.
But then reveals that he, at the same time, believed nothing of it.
He didn't believe it.
He admits it. This is a crucial admission of his intellectual dishonesty, the hollowness of his philosophy. Pangloss is so utterly committed to his optimistic framework that he'd rather admit to lying to himself than concede Leibniz might be wrong. It's Voltaire's ultimate jab at dogmatic philosophy. Even when confronted with undeniable reality and personal suffering, some will cling to abstract theories over truth. What does that tell us about human nature's resistance to uncomfortable facts?
That's a powerful point. Pangloss's intellectual dishonesty is staggering. In Chapter 29, in what manner Candide found Miss Cunegonde and the old woman again, the group finally arrives at the Transylvanian prince's house where Cunegonde is working. The first sight they behold: Miss Cunegonde and the old woman hanging tablecloths to dry.
The reunion.
Candide, the tender Candide, that affectionate lover, is struck with horror. Cunegonde is all sunburned, with bleary eyes, a withered neck, wrinkled face and arms, all covered with a red scurf. He literally recoils in shock, but approaches out of politeness.
Oh dear. And Cunegonde.
Cunegonde, oblivious to her transformed appearance, reminded Candide of his promise in so peremptory manner that the simple lad did not dare to refuse her.
She holds him to it. Candide informs the Baron he will marry his sister. The Baron, despite his own recent suffering in the galleys, is still consumed by aristocratic pride. I will never suffer my sister to be guilty of an action so derogatory to her birth and family.
72 quarterings again.
Exactly. He refuses, fearing his nephews wouldn't be qualified for the first ecclesiastical dignities in Germany. Candide, exasperated by this unyielding prejudice, reminds the Baron of his deliverance from the galleys, the payment of his ransom, Cunegonde's current state as an ugly scullion. He even threatens to kill him again.
He's really changed.
He has. The Baron, however, remains inflexible, highlighting the unyielding nature of class prejudice, even in the face of shared trauma and extreme personal degradation.
This epic, chaotic journey culminates in Chapter 30. Conclusion. Candide marries Cunegonde, partly from obligation, partly due to the Baron's extreme impertinence. The newly formed, rather eccentric group debates what to do with the stubborn Baron.
What do you do him? Pangloss drafts a fine memorial,
Yeah.
arguing the Baron has no right to prevent the marriage. Martin suggests throwing him into the sea.
Practical Martin.
Cacambo proposes a more pragmatic, almost cruel solution, delivering him back to the Turkish captain and the galleys, then arranging for him to be sent to the Jesuit general in Rome via the first available ship. This pragmatic punishment, carried out for a little money, is adopted, successfully tricking a Levantine captain and punishing the Baron's unbending pride.
Off he goes again. The group then settles on a small farm. But the anticipated happiness, it doesn't materialize immediately. Candide was robbed of most of his diamonds, leaving him with only the farm.
So, no happily ever after just yet. Fudigan, every day growing more and more ugly, becomes headstrong and insupportable. The old woman is infirm and more ill-natured yet. Cacambo curses his fate, overworked. Pangloss despairs of academic recognition. Martin remains convinced a person is equally ill-situated everywhere.
The irony is just palpable, isn't it? Even after all their struggles, simply settling down doesn't bring immediate bliss. Martin's perspective continues to ground their experience in harsh reality.
The old woman, reflecting on their past and present, asks this profound question. Which is worst? To experience all the miseries through which every one of us has passed, or to remain here doing nothing?
Boredom versus suffering.
Right. Martin, ever consistent, concludes, man was born to live the convulsions of disquiet or in the lethargy of idleness. Pangloss, despite his own disquiet and all the evidence, still maintained optimism and at the same time believed nothing of it. A final ironic statement on the emptiness of his philosophy.
And guess who shows up? Paquette and Friar Giroflée.
Oh no, what happened to them?
They've squandered Candide's money and fallen right back into misery. Giroflée has even turned Turk. Martin's earlier prediction of their continued wretchedness is confirmed, reinforcing his bleak view of human nature and the fleeting nature of superficial happiness bought with money.
Seeking wisdom, they consult a dervish, reputed to be the best philosopher in Turkey. They ask him why so strange an animal as man has been formed.
The big question.
The dervish dismisses them curtly, compares them to rats on a ship worrying about the ship's owner. He tells them to be silent and basically mind your own business. It's this blunt rejection of abstract philosophical inquiry in the face of life's unanswerable questions, a very practical, almost anti-intellectual response to grand theories.
Undeterred, on their way back to the farm, they encounter a good-looking old man, peacefully cultivating his small garden, just 20 acres. He knows nothing of the political upheavals in Constantinople, the viziers being strangled. He's content to send his produce there. He explains his simple philosophy. His labor keeps off from us three great evils: idleness, vice, and want.
Work of salvation. Pangloss, ever the debater, launches into this long list of kings who met miserable ends to prove the dangers of human grandeur. But Candide, finally finding his own voice and a practical wisdom, cuts him off with the profound, simple conclusion. Neither need you tell me that we must take care of our garden.
We must cultivate our garden.
Exactly. Pangloss ironically agrees, citing Eden. Martin, in a rare moment of practical advice, adds, work then, without disputing. It is the only way to render life supportable. This is the ultimate lesson of the book, isn't it? A pragmatic philosophy forged in the crucible of suffering.
The little society embraces this practical philosophy. Cunigund, though ugly, becomes an excellent hand at pastry work. Paquette embroiders, the old woman manages linen. Giroflée becomes an honest man as a carpenter. Everyone contributes.
Finding purpose in work.
Right. Pangloss, still clinging to his concatenation of all events in the best of possible worlds, tries to link their past sufferings to their present simple life. But Candide, with his hard-earned wisdom, simply replies, excellently observed, but let us cultivate our garden.
Perfect ending. It encapsulates the entire journey. It's a call to practical action, humble engagement with the world as it is, not as we wish it to be, or as some philosopher tells us it should be. #outro.
What an extraordinary journey you've been on with Candide. Wow. From that initial naive optimism to a world of just endless suffering, fleeting joys, unexpected reunions. This deep dive into Candide truly highlights how relentless human nature is, doesn't it? Both in its capacity for cruelty and its surprising resilience. We've seen how Voltaire systematically dismantles these abstract philosophical ideals, replacing them with a hard-won, very practical wisdom.
Yeah, Voltaire's genius really lies in stripping away those grand philosophical illusions and forcing us to confront reality, warts and all. The ultimate wisdom, it turns out, isn't found in abstract debates or some endless search for a perfect world, but in practical action,
Yep.
in a modest engagement with our immediate surroundings.
Right.
It's a powerful testament to the idea that rather than endlessly theorizing or complaining about the world's evils, perhaps the most meaningful response is to focus on what we can actually control and how we can best contribute to our own small corner of the universe.
So, what does this all mean for you, listening right now? In a world that often feels overwhelming, maybe the most profound insight from Candide is this. While we can't always change the macro, the big picture, we can tend to the micro. The advice to cultivate our garden isn't about ignoring the world's problems, not at all. It's about finding meaning and purpose in diligent, constructive work within our own sphere. It's about finding contentment not in some theoretical best of all possible worlds, but in making our world, however small, a little better, one day at a time. Well said. What stands out to you from Candide's journey? Something to mull over, perhaps, until our next deep dive. Until next time. See you then.